Grupo Salinas y First Global, les damos la bienvenida a la Arena Ciudad de México en el marco del Mundial de Robótica First Global Challenge Ciudad de México 2018, donde mostraremos al mundo la grandeza de nuestra gente, de nuestra calidez y nuestra hospitalidad como mexicanos. Tenemos el honor de contar con más de 160 países con los que estamos conectados vía streaming, en vivo y a todo el mundo. Y para iniciar este evento, les invito a todos que nos pongamos de pie y entonar respetuosamente nuestro himno nacional mexicano. Podemos tomar asientos si son tan amables. Señoras y señores, saludamos respetuosamente al licenciado Enrique Peña Nieto, presidente de los Estados Unidos mexicanos. Saludamos al anfitrión de este magno evento, presidente de Grupo Salinas y miembro fundador de First Global, el señor Ricardo Salinas Pliego. En nuestro respetable presidium se encuentra el hombre que tuvo un sueño y que hoy se ha transformado en una gran realidad. Y este sueño se llama First Global. Presento a ustedes al presidente y fundador de First Global, el señor Dean Kamen. Saludamos con respeto al licenciado Otto Granados Roldán, secretario de Educación Pública del Gobierno Federal. Al licenciado Pedro Joaquín Caldwell, secretario de Energía del Gobierno Federal. Al doctor Ignacio Navarro Cermeño, presidente de First México. Al señor Rick Perry, secretario de Energía de los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica. Al doctor Jaime Hernández Martínez, director general de la Comisión Federal de Electricidad. A la senadora Ninfa Salinas Sada, presidenta de los consejos consultivos de Grupo Salinas. Al maestro Jaime Valls Esponda, secretario general ejecutivo de la Asociación Nacional de Universidades e Instituciones de Educación Superior, ANUYES. Y al doctor Enrique Cabrero Mendoza, director general del Consejo Nacional de Ciencia y Tecnología, CONACYT. Los ojos del mundo están puestos en México y más de 1000 jóvenes de diferentes países prepararon todo para estar hoy aquí, en la Ciudad de México, en el Mundial de Robótica First Global 2018. La ilusión de competir, de cooperar y de trabajar para resolver uno de los retos más grandes e importantes de nuestros tiempos, el reto del impacto de la energía, se hace presente aquí. Veamos este video.
From sunny beaches to towering mountain ranges, rural roads to glowing cities, from conflict-stricken nations to centers of global activity, nearly 1,000 youth of different landscapes, religions, and cultures, in almost every nation gather to participate in a robotics competition that is so much more than that. Students of varying backgrounds, those who have robotics experience and those who do not. They all say goodbye to their family and friends, some of them for the first time, as they leave their homes. Whether small rural communities or buzzing metropolises, they all pack not just their clothes and flag, they also pack a robot that is so much more than a robot. It's their character, their determination, their efforts, hopes, and dreams that they bring with them. Even though they each travel a different route to get here, these young leaders of tomorrow all come with the same idea in mind. They are united. They are coming together in the pursuit of a common goal, meeting one another not only in the spirit of competition, but in the enjoyment and love of seeing their robots and ideas gather together. Some look out the airplane windows, and others dream of what they will be a part of. Despite the many challenges they face, with some confronting true gritty adversity, they overcome it time and time again. When they land, often after an exhausting mix of flights, layovers, and transfers, they present their passports, get their robots through customs, grab their luggage, and head off to take part in this new adventure. Some have already made new friends on their journey, embodying the true spirit of international cooperation and friendship as they come together to celebrate diversity, ingenuity, and innovation through their shared love of STEM and making the world a better place. They meet one another, shake each other's hands, and say, "Hey, what's your name? It's nice to meet you." They understand that meeting new people and exchanging ideas moves us all forward, as it motivates us to not only create new forms of technology, but also create better versions of ourselves. They know that it is in diversity that ideas thrive, solutions come to life, and most importantly, it's in our coming together that we can be and achieve so much more. The leaders of tomorrow meet on the fields of both competition and cooperation, showing that, when given the chance, these young citizens can solve our most pressing global challenges and build a better world for us all.
Y como nunca será lo mismo verlo que vivirlo, señoras y señores, recibamos al equipo de Afganistán.
Team Afghanistan.
جمهوری اسلامی افغانستان.
El equipo de África.
Team Africa.
Africa.
El equipo de Albania.
Team Albania.
Republika e Shqipërisë.
El equipo de Algeria.
Team Algeria.
الجمهورية الجزائرية الديمقراطية الشعبية.
El equipo de Andorra.
Team Andorra.
Principat d'Andorra.
El equipo de Angola.
Team Angola.
República de Angola.
Equipo de Antigua y Barbuda.
Team Antigua and Barbuda.
Antigua and Barbuda.
Equipo de Argentina.
Team Argentina.
República Argentina.
Equipo de Armenia.
Team Armenia.
استانيها repetition.
Equipo de Australia.
Team Australia.
Commonwealth of Australia.
Equipo de Austria.
Team Austria.
Republik Österreich.
Team Azerbaijan.
Equipo de Azerbaiyán.
Azerbaycan Respublikası.
Equipo de Bahamas.
Team Bahamas.
Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Equipo de Bangladesh.
Team Bangladesh.
Guano Kojachunchri Bangladesh.
Equipo de Barbados.
Team Barbados.
Barbados.
Equipo de Bielorrusia.
Team Belarus.
Republika Belarus.
Equipo de Bélgica.
Team Belgium.
Koninkrijk België.
Equipo de Belice.
Team Belize.
Belize.
Equipo de Bermuda.
Team Bermuda.
Bermuda.
Equipo de Bután.
Team Bhutan.
Drukgyal Cup.
Equipo de Bolivia.
Team Bolivia.
Estado Plurinacional de Bolivia.
Equipo de Bosnia-Herzegovina.
Team Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Bosnia y Herzegovina.
Equipo de Botsuana.
Team Botswana.
Republic of Botswana.
Equipo de Brasil.
Team Brazil.
República Federativa do Brasil.
Equipo de Bulgaria.
Team Bulgaria.
República Bulgária.
Equipo de Burkina Faso.
Team Burkina Faso.
Burkina Faso.
Equipo de Burundi.
Team Burundi.
République du Burundi.
Equipo de Cabo Verde.
Team Cabo Verde.
República de Cabo Verde.
Equipo de Camboya.
Team Cambodia.
Prerechina Kampuchea.
Equipo de las Islas Caimán.
Team Cayman Islands.
Cayman Islands.
Equipo de Canadá.
Team Canada.
Canada.
Equipo de China.
Team China.
中华人民共和国
Equipo de la República Central Africana.
Team Central African Republic.
République centrafricaine.
Equipo de Colombia.
Team Colombia.
República de Colombia.
Equipo de Chile.
Team Chile.
República de Chile.
Equipo de la República del Congo.
Team Republic of the Congo.
République du Congo.
Equipo de China Taipei.
Team Chinese Taipei.
中华台北
Equipo de Costa de Marfil.
Team Côte d'Ivoire.
République de Côte d'Ivoire.
Equipo de Costa Rica.
Team Costa Rica.
República de Costa Rica.
Equipo de Cuba.
Team Cuba.
República de Cuba.
Equipo de Croacia.
Team Croatia.
Republika Karwacka.
Equipo de la República Checa.
Team Czech Republic.
Česká republika.
Equipo de Chipre.
Team Cyprus.
Kypriaki Demokratia.
Equipo de la República Dominicana.
Team Dominican Republic.
República Dominicana.
Equipo Dinamarca.
Team Denmark.
Congo, Denmark.
Equipo de Egipto.
Team Egypt.
جمهورية مصر العربية.
Equipo Dominica.
Team Dominica.
Commonwealth of Dominica.
Equipo Guinea Ecuatorial.
Team Equatorial Guinea.
República de Guinea Ecuatorial.
Equipo Ecuador.
Team Ecuador.
República del Ecuador.
Equipo de Estonia.
Team Estonia.
Eesti Vabariik.
Equipo de El Salvador.
Team El Salvador.
República de El Salvador.
Equipo de Etiopía.
Team Ethiopia.
يا إثيوبيا فدرالوي ديمقراساوي ريبوبليك.
Equipo de Eritrea.
Team Eritrea.
هاجر إرترا.
Equipo de Fiji.
Team Fiji.
فيجي.
Equipo Eswatini.
Team Eswatini.
Mbusu Wiswatini.
Equipo de Francia.
Team France.
République française.
Equipo Europa.
Team Europe.
Europe.
Equipo de Gambia.
Team Gambia.
Republic of the Gambia.
Equipo de Finlandia.
Team Finland.
Suomen tasavalta.
Alemania.
Team Germany.
Bundesrepublik Deutschland.
Equipo de Gabón.
Team Gabon.
République gabonaise.
Equipo de Grecia.
Team Greece.
Ελληνική Δημοκρατία.
Equipo de Georgia.
Team Georgia.
Sakartvelo.
Equipo de Guam.
Team Guam.
Guam.
Equipo de Granada.
Team Grenada.
Grenada.
Equipo de Guyana.
Team Guyana.
Cooperative Republic of Guyana.
Equipo de Guatemala.
Team Guatemala.
República de Guatemala.
Equipo de Honduras.
Team Honduras.
República de Honduras.
Equipo de Haití.
Team Haiti.
République d'Haïti.
Equipo de Hong Kong, China.
Team Hong Kong.
中华人民共和国香港特别行政区。
Equipo de Islandia.
Team Iceland.
Island.
Equipo de Hungría.
Team Hungary.
Magyarország.
Equipo de Indonesia.
Team Indonesia.
Republik Indonesia.
Equipo de la India.
Team India.
Republic of India.
Equipo de Irak.
Team Iraq.
جمهورية العراق.
Equipo de Irán.
Team Iran.
جمهورية إسلامي إيران.
Equipo de Israel.
Team Israel.
مدينة إسرائيل.
Equipo de Irlanda.
Team Ireland.
Ireland.
Equipo de Jamaica.
Team Jamaica.
Jamaica.
Equipo de Italia.
Team Italy.
Repubblica Italiana.
Equipo de Jordania.
Team Jordan.
المملكة الأردنية الهاشمية.
Equipo de Japón.
Team Japan.
Nihongoku.
Equipo de Kenia.
Team Kenya.
Republic of Kenya.
Equipo Kiribati.
Team Kiribati.
Republic of Kiribati.
Equipo de la República de Corea.
Team Republic of Korea.
天安民国
Equipo de Latvia.
Team Latvia.
Latvias Republika.
Equipo de Kirguistán.
Team Kyrgyzstan.
Kyrgyzstan Republika.
Equipo de Lesoto.
Team Lesotho.
Kingdom of Lesotho.
Equipo de Líbano.
Team Lebanon.
الجمهورية اللبنانية.
Equipo de Lituania.
Team Lithuania.
Lietuvos Respublika.
Equipo de Madagascar.
Team Madagascar.
République de Madagascar.
Equipo de Malawi.
Team Malawi.
Republic of Malawi.
Equipo de Malasia.
Team Malaysia.
Malaysia.
Equipo de las Maldivas.
Team Maldives.
ديفي إيراج جمهورية.
Equipo de Malta.
Team Malta.
Republikata Malta.
Equipo de las Islas Marshall.
Team Marshall Islands.
Republic of the Marshall Islands.
Equipo de Mauritania.
Team Mauritania.
الجمهورية الإسلامية الموريتانية.
Equipo de Mauricio.
Team Mauritius.
République du Maurice.
Equipo de Moldova.
Team Moldova.
República Moldova.
Equipo Montenegro.
Team Montenegro.
Crna Gora.
Equipo de Marruecos.
Team Morocco.
المملكة المغربية.
Equipo de Mozambique.
Team Mozambique.
República de Moçambique.
Equipo Myanmar.
Team Myanmar.
Myanzu Tamana Mimanengeno.
Equipo de Namibia.
Team Namibia.
Republic of Namibia.
Equipo de Nepal.
Team Nepal.
Sangya Lotantri Gwanatantra Nepal.
Equipo de Holanda.
Team Netherlands.
Netherlands.
Equipo de Nueva Zelanda.
Team New Zealand.
New Zealand.
Equipo de Nicaragua.
Team Nicaragua.
República de Nicaragua.
Equipo de Nigeria.
Team Nigeria.
Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Equipo de América del Norte.
Team North America.
North America.
Equipo de Noruega.
Team Norway.
Kongeriki Norge.
Equipo Oceanía.
Team Oceania.
Oceania.
Equipo de Oman.
Team Oman.
سلطنة العمان.
Equipo de Panamá.
Team Panama.
República de Panamá.
Equipo de Palestina.
Team Palestine.
دولة فلسطين.
Equipo de Paraguay.
Team Paraguay.
República del Paraguay.
Equipo de Papúa Nueva Guinea.
Team Papua New Guinea.
Independent State of Papua New Guinea.
Equipo de Filipinas.
Team Philippines.
República ng Pilipinas.
Equipo de Perú.
Team Peru.
República del Perú.
Equipo de Portugal.
Team Portugal.
República Portuguesa.
Equipo de Polonia.
Team Poland.
Rzeczpospolita Polska.
Equipo de Rumanía.
Team Romania.
Romania.
Equipo de Qatar.
Team Qatar.
دولة قطر.
Equipo Santa Lucía.
Team St. Lucia.
St. Lucia.
Equipo de la Federación Rusa.
Team Russia.
Российская Федерация.
Equipo de Serbia.
Team Serbia.
República Serbia.
Equipo de St. Kitts y Nevis.
Team St. Kitts and Nevis.
Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Equipo de Eslovaquia.
Team Slovakia.
Slovenská republika.
Equipo de Senegal.
Team Senegal.
République du Sénégal.
Equipo de las Islas Solomon.
Team Solomon Islands. Solomon Islands.
Equipo de las Seychelles.
Team Seychelles.
République de Seychelles.
Equipo de América del Sur.
Team South America.
South America.
Equipo de Singapur.
Team Singapore.
Republic of Singapore.
Equipo de Sri Lanka.
Team Sri Lanka.
Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka.
Equipo de Eslovenia.
Team Slovenia.
Republika Slovenia.
Equipo de Surinam.
Team Suriname.
Republik Suriname.
Equipo de Sudáfrica.
Team South Africa.
Republic of South Africa.
Equipo de Suiza.
Team Switzerland.
Schweizerische Eidgenossenschaft.
Equipo de España.
Team Spain.
Reino de España.
Equipo de Timor del Este.
Team Timor-Leste.
Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste.
Equipo de Suecia.
Team Sweden.
Koninkrijket Sverige.
Equipo de Tonga.
Team Tonga.
Kingdom of Tonga.
Equipo de Tanzania.
Team Tanzania.
United Republic of Tanzania.
Equipo de Túnez.
Team Tunisia.
الجمهورية التونسية.
Equipo de Togo.
Team Togo.
République togolaise.
Equipo de Turkmenistán.
Team Turkmenistan.
Turkmenistan.
Equipo de Trinidad y Tobago.
Team Trinidad and Tobago.
Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
Equipo de los Emiratos Árabes Unidos.
Team United Arab Emirates.
دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة.
Equipo de Turquía.
Team Turkey.
تركيا جمهوريتها.
Equipo de los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica.
Team United States.
United States of America.
Equipo de Ucrania.
Team Ukraine.
Ucraina.
Equipo de Uzbekistán.
Team Uzbekistan.
Uzbekistan Respublikası.
Equipo del Reino Unido.
Team United Kingdom.
United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Equipo de Venezuela.
Team Venezuela.
República Bolivariana de Venezuela.
Equipo de Uruguay.
Team Uruguay.
República Oriental del Uruguay.
Equipo de las Islas Vírgenes.
Team Virgin Islands.
Virgin Islands of the United States.
Equipo de Vanuatu.
Team Vanuatu.
Vanuatu.
Equipo de Zambia.
Team Zambia.
Republic of Zambia.
Equipo de Vietnam.
Cộng hòa xã hội chủ nghĩa Việt Nam.
Equipo de Zimbabue.
Team Zimbabwe.
Republic of Zimbabwe.
Equipo Esperanza.
Team Hope.
Refugees.
Señoras y señores, y con nosotros los de casa, el equipo nacional mexicano.
Team Mexico.
Estados Unidos Mexicanos.
Qué gran emoción recibir a todos estos jóvenes que, preocupados por el desarrollo de su tierra y comprometidos con ser la energía del futuro y llevar el nombre de cada uno de sus países con alto orgullo y alegría, lo recibimos este día aquí y les dedicamos otro fuerte aplauso. Presento a ustedes al señor Tim Kamen, presidente de First Global, quien nos dirigirá algunas palabras. Señor Kamen.
Hola, Mexico. Sadly, I cannot say much more in Spanish. You have to forgive me. This is a very, very, very special day. I want to explain why, very briefly. Nearly 30 years ago, I started an organization that I believed could really change the attitude of kids, their parents, their teachers, companies, government leaders. I saw the power of sports, and in rich countries where people have time and resources, more and more kids were spending more and more time on sports, and they get better at sports. But fewer and fewer kids were putting the same energy and work and effort and passion into studying math and science and engineering. And I could see that the world was very soon going to run out of the kind of people we need to solve all the crucial problems. So I said, we know how to fix this problem. We don't have to invent a new model. Sports works. We have to invent a new sport. We have to invent a sport in which kids will have passion for and become excellent at problem solving, at inventing, at communicating and cooperating on teams working together. And so I formed an organization called FIRST, because in sports, everybody wants to be first. Nobody walks around cheering, I want to be second. Well, it worked. And year after year, we went from 20 or 30 teams in our very first year, before all of you were born, to this year we had more than 60,000 teams around the world in FIRST. That's very good news. The trouble is, our teams, like energy, like food, like water, wasn't being evenly distributed around the world. And a couple of years ago, a world leader from a little country, Israel, he was 90 years old at the time, Shimon Peres, had been watching FIRST grow in Israel for 15 years, and he said to me, Dean, it's amazing how well it's growing, and in countries like the US, Canada, Mexico, Israel, you've got so many teams in those countries that they run their own events, and they're making it more available to more kids. But most of the rest of the world is either struggling or doesn't have any teams. He said, you need to build an organization that focuses separately on bringing the whole world to this opportunity. It can't stay based only in the US and invite teams from around the world. And I thought to myself, I thought I had a big idea when I was going to change the culture of our whole country 30 years ago. Now I heard we need to change the culture of the whole world. So I did what I always do when I have a big problem. I find a few very special people, a small group, that I believe have the vision and the resources and the courage to try something really big and really new. And by a couple of years ago, I already had that small group of people that already believed in FIRST. And I knew I needed to reach out to some of those international people associated with FIRST, and I went to them and said, I know you've helped us a lot already. There's hundreds of teams, for instance, in Mexico already. But we need to form a new organization that stands besides FIRST, and we'll call it FIRST Global. And I told them a couple of years ago, we can do it much faster than the 30 years it took. The first time, I said, let's do a demonstration of a program that operates like the Olympic sports, and let's bring one team from countries around the world to a demonstration of our new idea with a new kit, with a new focus, and we promised that we would use a new problem every year. So we did a demonstration last year in the capital of the United States, in Washington, D.C., and I thought we'd get 30 or 40 countries. We got 157. That shows you how much the world really does understand the issues and the opportunities. Well, that was such an exciting demonstration, I turned to some of that little group that said they would help me turn First Global into a reality. And it was a very small group of people, and one of those people that was there in Washington was Ricardo Salinas. And I said, Ricardo, you have a beautiful arena. This is the 50th anniversary of the Mexico City Olympics. Mexico City's the capital of a country. We should do the first official First Global event next year in your country. Is there enough time? Can we do this? There's a lot of risk. Some other people were on my founding board in America, but very well attached to Mexico. Pablo Legorreta, who was in Washington with us, and he's here today. So it seemed like it was perfect. Our board was very intimate with First, and some of our board members believed, with all the support we've had over 15 years, we could make this work and show the whole world, we could host the world with an event for the first time like this. And we didn't get 157 countries. We got 193 countries that got their kits and built their robots. Only some of them weren't able to get into the country. We'll do better next year. But whether they got their robot here or not, we have planted our seeds of First now officially in 193 countries. It took an enormous amount of work from an enormous number of people, an enormous number of people. But the small group of people, I won't mention them now, deserve enormous thanks. Before I ask you to do that, which is a tradition in First that you need to adopt, I just want to give one piece of advice to the students. You've worked really hard. You've all come here with a robot. You all recognize that only a few robots are going to win. But you have to trust me on this. We've been doing this for a lot of years. I've never seen any of the robots that lose cry. They're okay. We don't mind that only a few of the robots actually win. Our goal is to make sure that all the students win. You all have to be our winners. We picked, for this last year, water. Why did we pick water as the problem you need to solve? As a kid, I used to hear a philosopher say, is the glass half empty? Is the glass half full? We're mathematicians. A half equals a half. It's a trivial question. Who cares? When you ask a scientist or an engineer, they don't ask a stupid question like that with an answer. A scientist or an engineer says, is that water safe to drink? Do we have enough of that for the whole world? If we don't, how are we going to find more or make that drinkable or find an alternative? We need scientists and engineers and innovators to solve our problems with water and health and education and security and energy. And the same questions about is it half empty or half full, people say, we're making too much energy. In the rich countries, maybe. Other countries have no energy, and they desperately need it to get out of poverty. Others will say, if we make more energy, it'll hurt the environment. They're both right. They're both wrong. Engineers and scientists don't do philosophy. Engineers and scientists solve problems. We create solutions. We're here with the symbolic game this year in which you're using your talent to turn on the wind turbine, fire up the solar panels, figure out how to make fuel clean, figure out how to make energy, move it. You get points for sharing it. It's a cooperation. This is a model of the real world you're going to inherit. The biggest problem our world has now is we don't have enough young people that have learned how to work together to solve the problems you're all going to face. And First Global has one mission: to plant a seed in every country in the world that will make you all recognize that science and engineering and technology and inventing is every bit as much fun and every bit as exciting and way more likely to lead to careers than anything else you can do with your time. So I'm begging you to remember that most of your robots aren't going to win. You're all winners. You need to support each other. You need to go back to your countries and help us grow this program so that the world will have enough great people with the tools and resources and vision and courage to take on big problems, working together and solve them. When we started FIRST, the name FIRST, for inspiration and recognition of science and technology, I thought it was up to the leaders of business and industry to inspire kids first. I realized, in fact, most of the reason I get the help from all these people is because in reality, it's the students that inspire us when we hear your stories and what you've done. So I thank you for that. And I'll remind our great supporters that a president of the United States, when the world was in trouble, at war, in World War II, Franklin Roosevelt said, "We cannot build the future for our youth. We have to build our youth for the future." They believe that. I'm not going to thank them now, but before I sit down, I'm going to ask all of you from every country here to adopt a tradition that we've had at FIRST since we started, and it's the following. I don't thank them. Nobody up here, not the President of Mexico, nobody up here is doing this for me. These are smart people, dedicated people that recognize what the world really needs, and they're doing all of this for you. So rather than me, one crazy guy from New Hampshire, thanking them, this is where I ask every time we have an event, all the students to stand up and show your appreciation to the incredible group of volunteers, mentors, teachers, community leaders, business leaders, and government leaders that are making this possible for you. Please do that right now. Thank you. And Mr. President, thank you.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts, Mr. Kamen. Muchas gracias, señor Kamen. Impulsor de la ciencia y la tecnología en la educación y sobre todo un convencido de la importancia de estas disciplinas en el futuro, quiero pedir a don Ricardo Salinas Pliego que nos comparta algunas ideas.
Bienvenidos todos a México. Esperemos que tengan unos días inolvidables. De parte de todos los organizadores y todos los que estamos aquí, les deseamos a todos los chicos la mejor de las experiencias en esta primera competencia de FIRST Global. Quiero agradecer al señor presidente Enrique Peña que nos acompañe en esta ocasión y que nos haya apoyado con todo lo necesario para que los chicos y sus robots puedan entrar y estar en nuestro país y sentirse como en casa. Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Gracias. I also want to thank Dean Kamen for making this happen. It's his idea, it's his project, and we've all been just slaves working to make it happen. Muchas gracias, Dean. Esta competencia nos enseña la importancia de promover entre los jóvenes la ciencia, la tecnología, las matemáticas y la ingeniería. El mundo necesita un cambio cultural, es decir, jóvenes entusiastas con mentalidad ganadora. First Global hace exactamente eso. Y estamos emocionados de ver a tantos chicos y chicas de tantos países del mundo estar aquí unidos, compitiendo, pero cooperando, orgullosos de sus banderas, pero también orgullosamente parte de una organización mundial. Ojalá y las relaciones entre los países fuesen así también, y que en lugar de construir muros, pudiéramos construir puentes, y que en lugar de tener nacionalismos, gracias, y en lugar de tener nacionalismos que nos dividen, que pudiésemos tener proyectos comunes que nos impulsan a ser mejores. En las últimas 3 décadas, la ciencia, la tecnología ha traído incontables beneficios para la humanidad. Y ustedes, estoy seguro, que nos van a sorprender trayendo aún más innovación y sorpresas que nos van a dejar sorprendidos de lo mal que estamos hoy comparado con lo bien que vamos a estar dentro de 30 años. La tecnología no para. Cada vez la inteligencia artificial, las computadoras, los robots van a ser más poderosos y estoy seguro que todos ustedes van a ser parte de ello. Así que yo los felicito porque son parte de la 4ª revolución industrial. Y eso está muy bien, pero lo más importante, chicos, chicas, está en su cabeza. Si ustedes creen que pueden, pueden. Y estoy seguro que de aquí para adelante. Muchas gracias a todos ustedes, enhorabuena y les deseo todo el éxito aquí en México. Bienvenidos a México, gracias.
Gracias, señor Salinas. Escuchamos con respeto al licenciado Enrique Peña Nieto, presidente de los Estados Unidos mexicanos.
Muchísimas gracias. Muy buenas tardes. Tomen asiento, por favor. Muchas gracias a Ricardo Salinas, cofundador de esta organización First Global, que organiza este mundial de robótica aquí en nuestra ciudad. Y, por supuesto, al fundador, a quien tuvo la iniciativa, a Dean Kamen, quien nos ha compartido aquí su experiencia de estos últimos 3 años, 30 años, que nos precisamente nos traslada a este momento de recoger toda una vivencia y de estar hoy materializada en esta experiencia única que es el haber organizado este Mundial de Robótica aquí en la Ciudad de México. Saludo a los integrantes del Gobierno de la República, al Secretario de Energía del Gobierno de Estados Unidos, a quien le extiendo la más cordial bienvenida a nuestro país, a la senadora del Gobierno de la República y a todas las autoridades, al presidente de todas las universidades de nuestro país, a quien saludo, y especialmente extiendo la más cordial bienvenida a todas las delegaciones de los 193 países que se dan cita en este Mundial de Robótica con sede en nuestro país. México lo recibe con los brazos abiertos. México lo recibe con calidez, mostrando lo que somos, lo que tenemos, y espero que la experiencia que vivan en nuestro país sea enriquecedora para su propia vida y sobre todo para lo que contribuyan a hacer en las grandes soluciones que el mundo habrá de enfrentar hacia adelante. Sean todas y todos bienvenidos a México. Comentamos hace un momento, aunque traía mi discurso, me voy a apartar un poco y no voy a regresar a él. Me voy a permitir compartir con ustedes algunas reflexiones, recogiendo lo que aquí se ha dicho. Primero, para México es de una gran distinción ser sede de este evento. Hacíamos aquí recuento de que justamente hace 50 años, en 1968, en México estaban teniendo lugar las Olimpiadas, la edición de las Olimpiadas. Y a 50 años de distancia, México es la primer sede, después de Estados Unidos, de albergar una Olimpiada de Robótica como la que está teniendo lugar hoy aquí. Y que estoy seguro que en esta invención de este nuevo deporte, de esta nueva disciplina que alienta la competencia y que motiva a los participantes a la creatividad, a la imaginación para aportar soluciones globales, estoy seguro que en este ejercicio todavía de iniciación, muy pronto habrá de convertirse en una gran competencia realizada a nivel mundial y distingue a México ser el primer país después de Estados Unidos en el que tiene lugar este gran evento de orden mundial. Por ello nos felicitamos y nos congratulamos. Voy a recoger algo expresado por Dean en su intervención. Efectivamente, los gobiernos dedicamos esfuerzos para resolver los problemas de nuestro tiempo, preparando también lo que habrá de deparar a las futuras generaciones. Pero coincido en que más que pretender resolver los problemas de las futuras generaciones, de lo que tenemos que ocuparnos los gobiernos centralmente es de preparar y formar a las futuras generaciones para que encaren con éxito los desafíos y retos del mañana. Y eso es justamente lo que estamos haciendo. Su participación en este evento mundial de robótica, sin duda, es la convocatoria a jóvenes de talento de todo el mundo, de 193 países, para que vengan aquí a competir y dentro de la disciplina de la robótica puedan construir y aportar su talento para resolver problemas muy específicos que hoy vive nuestro mundo. Y eso pasa en distintos ámbitos, y aquí uno particularmente al que habrán de dedicar ustedes esfuerzos es para el tema de la energía. ¿Cómo generamos energía que cada día tiene mayor demanda, pero cómo la generamos en un ambiente de sustentabilidad, cuidadosos de nuestro medio ambiente, preservando nuestro mundo, cuidando de nuestro mundo? Y aquí también recojo una idea expresada por Ricardo Salinas. Sin duda, todos tenemos que contribuir, y cuando digo todos, me refiero al orden mundial, a todos haciendo un equipo único para cuidar al mundo, que es la casa de todos. No podemos en el futuro migrar a otra parte. Esta es la casa de todos. Un mundo que cada día alberga a más habitantes. En los últimos 50 años prácticamente viven un tanto más o el doble de los habitantes que en el mundo vivían en la década de los años 50. Y si bien el mundo es muy grande, la verdad es que las distancias se han acortado, la tecnología nos ha acercado y hoy no hay distancias mayores. Y en consecuencia, de manera global, es decir, todos los países y miembros de todos los países, ciudadanos, jóvenes, el talento que hay en el mundo, tiene que estar dedicado y puesto al orden de resolver los grandes problemas que vive la humanidad, sin egoísmos, sin pensar que son problemas solo de una nación o de unos cuantos países o de algunas regiones, porque al final de cuentas, lo que cada país emprende y realiza impacta necesariamente en otras regiones. Y lo vemos en fenómenos como el calentamiento global o el sobrecalentamiento global, que los países que más emisiones de carbono emiten al mundo no solo afecta a esos países, sino que afecta al mundo entero. Y que a veces los países con menores recursos son quienes viven los embates y los efectos de ese sobrecalentamiento global. Y así como lo ilustro en este ejemplo de algo que ocurre hoy en el mundo, estoy cierto que esta competencia global de robótica habrá de hacer su aportación a dar soluciones a los problemas que el mundo está enfrentando, que ustedes visualizan a la edad que hoy tienen y que habrán de ser referente en las decisiones y acciones que tomen los distintos gobiernos. Su creatividad, su capacidad innovadora es justamente la que enriquece y se convierte en referente de las decisiones que toman los gobiernos. Los gobiernos efectivamente tenemos la responsabilidad de dar cauce, de tomar definiciones para mantener un orden, armonía social y sobre todo garantizar un buen futuro para las próximas generaciones. Pero las soluciones no pueden venir solamente de los gobiernos, sino de recoger justamente la capacidad creativa y de innovación que tiene nuestra juventud. Por eso en México, les comparto brevemente, hemos impulsado una reforma educativa con ese propósito, de enseñar a la niñez y juventud mexicanas a que estén debidamente preparadas a partir de recibir una educación de calidad con maestros evaluados y en infraestructura adecuada y óptima, con un contenido educativo precisamente que dé soporte a esa capacidad creativa de nuestra juventud. Invirtiendo en innovación y en tecnología, conscientes de los cambios tecnológicos. Por eso en México hemos iniciado o nos hemos convertido en un referente de modelos en telecomunicaciones para asegurar que todos los mexicanos puedan tener acceso al Internet y a la telefonía móvil. Y hoy tenemos por resultado de esos esfuerzos emprendidos una telefonía en México que es más barata y un mayor acceso que se da precisamente al Internet de banda ancha, al Internet rápido, al Internet que permite al mundo y a los jóvenes estar mejor conectados. Hemos invertido en innovación y tecnología y falta aún mucho por hacer. El sector privado tiene que dedicar mayores esfuerzos junto con los gobiernos, porque ahí se cifra precisamente en el impulso y en el apoyo a la innovación y a la tecnología y a la ciencia, el que se puedan construir las soluciones en cada país y a partir de ahí hacerle frente a los grandes retos globales. Yo quiero felicitar, por último, esta gran iniciativa. Y repito, me distingue primero porque estoy en el último tramo de mi administración. Estoy por concluir mi gestión. Y para mí resulta muy honroso y una gran deferencia y distinción ser el presidente que inaugure esta Olimpiada, la primera que se realiza, repito, en un país fuera de los Estados Unidos, aquí en México, que convoca a 193 países y que el día de mañana, y no muy lejano, este evento, esta Olimpiada, será de una gran referencia, de una gran visibilidad y de un altísimo rating, como dicen en materia de telecomunicaciones, en todo el mundo. Hoy México se enorgullece de ser parte de este esfuerzo y a los jóvenes participantes les deseo el mayor de los éxitos. A la delegación anfitriona, la delegación de nuestro país, tienen que hacernos quedar muy bien. México les va a estar apoyando, pero al final de cuentas, ustedes son parte de este gran equipo de jóvenes talentosos de todo el mundo que darán soluciones a los grandes retos globales. Felicidades, que tengan el mayor de los éxitos y que disfruten de su participación en esta Olimpiada de Robótica realizada en México. Y dicho lo anterior, voy a proceder a la declaratoria inaugural. Hoy, 16 de agosto del 2018, declaro formalmente inaugurado el Mundial de Robótica Ciudad de México 2018, seguro de que el talento, la creatividad y el espíritu innovador de los jóvenes participantes contribuirán al mejor desarrollo de nuestras sociedades. Que tengan el mayor de los éxitos. ¡Felicidades!
Muchas gracias, señor presidente, por sus palabras. Estos jóvenes llegaron a México y fueron recibidos así.
Hola a todos.
Juntos podemos cambiar al mundo.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Esto es la creación según los aztecas. La importancia de los 4 elementos, la presencia de Quetzalcóatl y sus diferentes representaciones y la construcción de un nuevo mundo del que todos hoy somos responsables. Sin duda, señoras y señores, este ha sido un momento que estos jóvenes y todos nosotros atesoraremos por siempre. Ellos son la energía del futuro. Agradecemos a todos los presentes su presencia, al cuerpo diplomático de distintos países que han venido a apoyar a sus equipos. Desde luego a usted, señor presidente, muchas gracias. Y a todos ustedes, que tengan muy buenas tardes y nos vemos aquí para las competencias.
started tech in the first place because of a friend who actually went to First Global 2017, but all the stuff I heard about it made me really want to try it out, which is why I started robotics in the first place.
Hearing about First Global Challenge was like a blast in my heart. It was full of excitement, full of new ideas, full of new techniques.
The First Global Challenges, it has influenced cooperation among young people in order to influence world peace and stability, in order to show the world that there is a better way to solve problems other than fighting among each other.
Un nouveau ministère à l'exotystème, nous développons des capacités à nous développer par nous-mêmes à transformer nos communautés et lutter contre les épidémies.
I've been at the competitions, but First Global is a totally new experience. Preparing for this competition has taught us the importance of teamwork, perseverance, and realizing we can do anything we put our minds to.
Who wouldn't want to be a part of this? It's such a great opportunity to meet people with similar passions and interests that have come from different places and environments. I think it's such a great learning experience that can really help me propel myself into my future career in STEM. It's not every day that you get an opportunity to compete with and against like-minded people who want to better the world.
If you can't be with us here in attendance today and you're watching from abroad and across the world, you look at that recent video and you see who wouldn't want to be a part of this, and honestly, that sentiment is shared by just about everybody. I'm sure that's home and watching. Marlene, what do you think about that?
Yes, all of the students that are here participating in First Global Challenge are having an amazing experience. They're learning things that they wouldn't be learning otherwise, and I'm sure they're enjoying every single second of it.
And what I think that they're very much enjoying being a part of is what Dean had referenced earlier on in his speech, which is creating change. So we look at change makers now, and these teams that come here are remarkable in so many ways, many of which go beyond scientific acumen or aptitude. They're empathetic, goal-oriented, and community-driven people who are determined to not just live within a community as members, but to shape it positively as leaders. When science and technology provide the latitude to achieve those goals, it's just icing on the cake. Change requires the chance to try new things, the chance to fail, and the chance to learn from the experience. This can be done regardless of race, age, experience, gender, socioeconomics, or any other anthropological barriers we as people impart on ourselves. What we're going to be doing in the coming days and in the coming
It starts with an idea, a spark that ignites determination and unfolds an action plan. The youth of First Global aren't only passionate about STEM and building robots. They're also determined to use that passion to create solutions to the challenges faced by their communities.
What I want to do is put everybody in the mood. I want to make a difference, and let's change the history of our country.
My goal is proving to the world that the Palestinian people have the creativity to change the world when they have the chance.
I hope this will make a pathway for all the other girls in my country to follow their dreams and be brave.
I feel like I have a lot to give back to the community, because I believe that as you let your own light shine, you consciously give other people permission to do the same.
Nous sommes une équipe de jeunes adolescents qui espèrent impacter positivement le monde à travers First Global. Tout commence pour nous par un enfant, un robot et une chance pour tous.
No importa si eres hombre, mujer o tu situación económica, todos tienen el sueño de cambiar al mundo, y si tú lo quieres, lo puedes lograr.
The big message to take away from that video is if you can see it, if you can dream it, yes, you can. If you looked at Dean's message earlier on today, he had even mentioned years ago when FIRST had really started up, only having a few teams, but then growing into some experience that ended up having even 60,000 teams that he had mentioned earlier on in that speech. And again, that growth requires vision, it requires a lot of mental fortitude, it requires you in the face of adversity to really believe in your mission and what you're doing.
Yes, and we can see that the students are really believing in themselves, and that's what
the result of that is that they're creating change. They're changing themselves, they're changing their communities, and in the end, they're changing the world, which is the mission of First Global Challenge.
And it goes from even the individual level, focusing on growing ourselves personally, emotionally, and really connecting with some of the other teams that are here into those larger communities that you're referencing. And having 166 teams here representing those 161 countries, it really is incredible to see that in action.
Yes, you can see them learning to collaborate with people from other countries, with people who speak in different languages, and that is expanding their minds, you know? So I think they're growing a lot. I think they're changing themselves, they're changing the world, and I'm pretty sure during this competition they're going to grow even more than they've grown during the building season.
And you can see that in every single element of this competition, not just in the practice rounds that occurred in the days prior to what you're currently seeing, but even in the pits where we'll take you to later on in these teams assembling their robots, communicating with one another both as a team, but then even across the channels to, again, these other countries that are here, and just making sure that everybody is prepared for the roles and responsibilities ahead. This competition is very fast, it's very rapid moving, and it's one of those things that they need to be on their toes, and growing as communicators is very essential to that point. So when we talk about the cultures that are actually communicating across those barriers, it's something that's unique to every person, every country, and every generation. First Global is a conduit through which we can celebrate these cultures with an all-encompassing and welcoming frame of mind. It's through working together that we succeed, and by learning about other cultures that we can reflect on our own to become our best selves. Despite the differences in all of these countries, the language of robotics, science, engineering, and technology is universal and a means by which we can share all of ourselves, our histories, our ideas, and our fabric with others. A sense of true humanity can only be achieved when we consciously choose to see it in its entirety. It goes well beyond our respective walls. Our individual cultures are only shaped by our place in the world, but the world, too, is shaped by our shared cultures.
The spirit of First Global is truly international. We not only celebrate science and technology, but also the diversity of our teams from all over the globe. The places they come from, the histories they represent, the cultures they embody, and the new ideas they bring to the international community. No matter the language, economic status, religion, or culture, First Global brings people together to use the tools of STEM to make the world a better place. Because meeting new people and experiencing new ideas catapults us forward. It is through our diversity that ideas thrive, and that we find our true identity and sense of humanity.
In that video, you see the emotion truly come out of all of these students from all of these different corners of the globe, even dancing. You see it even in their faces and in what they're going to be doing over the next couple of days. It's going to be so easily read, and hopefully if you're at home watching, we're going to get a lot of different shots of these young scientists, engineers, and global thinkers, and it's going to be an incredible experience.
Yes, and I feel like the fact that there's so many cultures here together enriches the experience for all of the teams and for the competition itself. So earlier in the inauguration, where we've been seeing the countries parade, we could see every single country. We could see their personalities, what they bring to the competition, and it's amazing. I think it's one of the main points of what makes First Global so special.
And one of the big points that we also are going to be starting to talk about, and obviously I want to let you kind of take the lead on this, is our all-women teams that we have here. We've got 11 of them in attendance with us today and through the next coming days of competition, and it truly does embody the principles of trying to maintain equity and making sure that we're doing our best to support every single learner and scientist out there.
Of course it does. Having women in the competition only enriches it as well. Because, you know, too often people think of access and it being specific to socioeconomics, but in reality there are many other aspects of it that affect the access that people have to different resources and different opportunities. And here in First Global, we want to make sure that everyone is represented, that everyone has the same opportunity, and we want to make the competition as rich as possible so the kids can learn more, and so it has a better effect on everyone around the world.
And if you are at home watching and you see these teams end up competing, especially if you are one of those young women out there who's watching everything happen in front of your very eyes, please trust and understand that the opportunities, even though they might not exist, please believe and believe and believe in the fact that these young women who are fighting in our warriors, they're doing everything as far as being frontier breakers and making sure that they're pushing some of those boundaries to make sure that they're setting the tempo for the future and going forward.
And too often, people think of access and it being specific to socioeconomics, when in reality, there are even more broad and systemic problems we, as a united front are facing, specifically the gender equity in STEM-related fields. As I was mentioning earlier, over 250 participants in First Global this year are women, some of whom are part of our 11 all-female teams, as you were mentioning earlier. If you ask any of them or anyone who's witnessed firsthand the legacy they leave, it's clear that our women at First Global don't just participate, they lead. Just look at our mentors, organizers, and those in attendance to get a taste of what these warriors are doing. Marginalization and disenfranchisement are problems that deeply plague our world today, particularly in fields associated with science and technology. Our mission is to provide that every individual can be a catalyst for change, and this especially holds true for the young women of today who will be the leaders of tomorrow.
First Global is dedicated to providing access to STEM education and opportunities for all, especially those from underrepresented groups. Over 250 of our participants in this event are women, including 11 all-girls teams.
I believe that the world we want is not created by reason or logic, but by imagination. With these STEM subjects like technology and engineering, we can create the world we want through imagination.
I became interested in STEM since I was a little and helped my father in his job. My father is a mechanic who didn't study but wants me to study professionally to secure a job and be an engineer.
The work of today is the history of tomorrow, and the girl today is a leader tomorrow.
The women of First Global are determined to overcome the marginalization women often experience in STEM areas, and to be ambassadors who use their skills to enact positive change.
I aspire to be one of the change makers in the industry of STEM and be one of the catalysts that encourage young women and girls out there to join the world of STEM and make a change.
It's got to be incredibly inspirational to watch these young ladies compete on this grand and global stage. And speaking specifically from a teacher's perspective in teaching single-gender classes, it's very important to make sure that we are investing, again, in every single opportunity and in every single person to make sure that they take the most and utilize every chance that they get to not only improve their understanding of the world in which we exist, but also to make sure that they're doing the same and paying it forward.
Yes, and for me, specifically, this video is very touching because, you know, I am a woman, I'm a woman, and I'm here representing the gender in First Global Competition, and, you know, I heard a phrase in this video that touched me a lot that said, the world of today is the world of tomorrow, and the girls of today are the leaders of tomorrow. And I think that's true, because, you know, sometimes we imagine when we think of a president, when we think of a leader, we sometimes think of men, when in reality, women are just as capable, and we have some abilities that, you know, we can bring to the world to make it even better. So I found that phrase to be very touching and very true.
Well, and if you look at even the countries that these respective teams come from, there are specific places around the globe that have, I would say, a more difficult time of trying to make sure that both of those genders are equally represented in STEM-related fields. It's not just countries that, again, are socioeconomically more developed. It's not countries necessarily where, you know, gender equity is very much illustrated in the working world and in the workforce that these students will soon enter. It really is incredible to see them coming from all corners of the globe, particularly from these locations where equity is in no way, shape, or form reflected in the general population.
Yes, and in this weekend, you're going to see that some countries that are usually not as advanced on gender equality to have some all-women teams. So I feel like that shows the advancement and how far along we are coming as the world to see gender equity all around.
And if you're not a robot aficionado like myself, if you are very much a neophyte and a beginner to this and really don't understand the ins and outs and the nitty-gritty details, it's very important to make sure that you're looking at the right people to try to learn a little bit. And Marlene, you've been absolutely integral and essential in my experience in just trying to get to understand the game and the context a little bit more, what these robots are truly capable of, what it takes to build them. And again, these young ladies over the coming days are going to be showing us the same.
And yes, you know, the reason why I am sort of knowledgeable on the topic of the robotics is because I had the experience. I was part of a team from FRC, which is another FIRST program, and I got to see the whole process of learning how to build a robot and everything until the end. So that just, it hooked me. I was able to see how people grow and everything that you learn. And so that's what's got me hooked. And I've never been able to get away from the competition ever since.
And you had mentioned FRC earlier on. Those are some things that we're going to get into later because it's also under the FIRST umbrella. But right here in FIRST Global, we really do emphasize the importance of engineering. Even though it works in all of those different organizations, this one in particular is something that we try to emphasize. And in order to break out and move into the great beyond, we need builders. Engineers don't just envision, they affect change through their energy. They encapsulate the human spirit and its innate curiosity. Engineering is a process by which we can evolve, and it can happen on the biggest and smallest of scales. It requires elastic yet electric thinking. It requires us to live in the present, yet plan for the future. Engineers extract the potential from the abstract and make the implausible possible. Man landed on the moon via slide ruler in the 60s, and now in the 21st century, our universe has only become more appealing as a place to grow and to explore. Let's take a look.
The National Academy of Engineering did a project where we looked back at the great achievements of the 20th century. And if you look at that list, it's pretty remarkable. The world has been completely transformed by engineering in just a century. The list includes things like electrification, the automobile, the airplane, the personal computer, television, clean water. As I say, the world is completely different today than it was just 100 years ago, mostly for the better.
It gives you confidence that given the right goals and the right vision, humanity can raise itself above what we so frequently see.
We have 4 themes in the Grand Challenges for Engineering: sustainability, health, security, and joy of living. The last one is really important, right? It's about just making life better on the planet. It's about creating things that we never knew we even needed, but now can't live without. I think one of the messages is also that engineers are creative people. They've transformed the world, and we need them now to transform the world in key ways to make the world better.
The one thing that none of us can avoid is time. It's something that takes its place in human history, and it's something that is as imminent as it is unavoidable. And it's something that over the course of human existence, we've really evolved as a people, especially with some of the devices, with technological advances that we've had over time. It's changed dramatically and exponentially over the past few years. I'm nearing the age of 30. You're obviously much younger. But even if you talk to your folks at home, if you look at the students that you might interact with here, the amount that is changing every single year is growing every single year. And so the world of tomorrow is very much going to be different than today.
Yes, and all of these changes, all of these advancements are thanks to technology. They're thanks to STEM, because it's because of all of these areas of study that people are able to invent different products, different systems that allow us to live a better quality of life. So it is very important. You know, sometimes we think these products or all of these areas of study are very much advanced for our everyday life, but our quality of life is a direct result from everything that they're doing in STEM.
And it's very important to show some of these students, particularly in these developing nations that don't have necessary access to the technology that we often take for granted. It's very important for them to consider that the world is changing, even if the countries that are here are not and are lagging behind. It's something that we want to make sure everybody is caught up on, everybody is a part of, and everybody can have an impact on going forward.
Yes, and we are. I think it's very important to notice that 193 countries all got the same opportunity. They all got the same technology. They were all able to learn from the same kit of parts, the same challenge. So we're all growing in the same rate. So even though some countries might be more into the STEM culture, in FIRST Global, we're trying to make every single country and every single student interested in this area.
That's a very big part of the promotion that we're trying to cultivate here, and something that is very much growing over time, something we're proud of, but certainly a work in progress like anything worth working towards. And so hopefully over the coming days, those of you who are watching at home are going to be able to take something away from this experience, and hopefully you can personally reflect on it as well. STEM is a term that's often floated around the world, but with little true understanding of its depth and importance. Science, technology, engineering, and math. They're independently empowering and capable of opening doors. However, STEM is all the important crossroads where creativity and change can collide. where we can navigate to a new age, and where free thoughts can flourish. The combination of these important areas of study can be viewed as a holistic way of approaching problems and surpassing them, but it also breaks the traditional barriers that have hampered us as lifelong learners. Let's take a look.
Science, technology, engineering, and math are more than just buzzwords. They're real-life tools to make a student's dream a reality. Robotics is a crossroad between the practical applications of STEM and the exercise of creativity. Students use their imagination and critical thinking, taking a box full of parts and building machines that can accomplish anything. They see a challenge seemingly unsurmountable and formulate solutions with engineering, programming, creativity, and imagination. So here's to the designers, to the programmers, to the builders, the testers, and the creators. Here's to the students using STEM to build their dreams to make the future a reality.
STEM is a subject that is all-encompassing. It doesn't just involve science. It doesn't just involve engineering. It doesn't just involve technology. It's really the all-encompassing and, again, the crossroads. It's that one point where all of them can descend and we combine them to make something much, much greater than one of those independently.
Yes, and you know, STEM is interesting, or it should be interesting for kids as young as 3 years old until, I mean, we're grown up. And you should know that, Tim, because I mean, you are a science teacher. You've seen that. You've seen students being interested. You've seen how their eyes light up when they understand the new concept, and you can see the effect that it has on their personal lives. Tell us more about it.
One thing about STEM that I find to be very personally validating, even though I very much lack this sense in my brain, is a creative outlet. STEM is very much an opportunity for students to unleash their creativity on the world, to generate ideas that maybe other people scratch their heads at or think, what are you doing? And in reality, everything starts as an idea. And once again, Dean reflected on that earlier on when First Global started. And it's something that is growing over time. It's something that is gaining confidence and traction. And so as long as you can have that confidence in yourself, and as a teacher, again, something I find to be important is really trying to throw that confidence in some of our students.
Yes, and definitely this First Global program is in making students interested in STEM. It's making them interested in everything. As I said before, I was a participant in a first competition, and after I graduated, I wanted to stay in the whole environment at first, and that's why I decided to become a volunteer, which is super important. And the definition of volunteer is one who freely offers, be it volunteering an idea, a vision, or one's time. It involves the process of giving, the giving of oneself. Although the sacrifice is rarely appreciated to the extent that it should be, it's the mark of one's true heart and character when gratification comes, even when gratitude might not, but I mean, it's okay. The buying in for a larger purpose and putting one's faculties and energies into that larger purpose, as sacred as it is essential for our world, is going to make it successful. Our world is going to be successful because of all of the volunteers that are working for it. Magnanimity isn't a sign of madness, it's a sign of humanity, and it is what will bring the world forward.
Right now, I get out of the experience an expectation of seeing all these teams that I would have never envisioned being in one place. I'm hoping that my small part is that I'm already in a STEM career. I already get to teach other kids to do robotics, but I can be part of something additionally that spreads that beyond the small range of impact that I normally have.
A volunteer likes to do that for the betterment of their local community, perhaps the city and state, and even for their country, but you don't hear a lot of it volunteering for something like this. And doing something for the betterment of all humanity, I think is pretty cool.
The events are fun. The people you will meet are passionate and fun to hang around with. And I've literally seen lives change through these programs over the years. And the fact that it has such a broad reach, that it is so international, is really exciting.
It's a giant volunteer thing. You're not coming here to make money. You're not coming here to prove that you're doing something better than anybody else. You're coming to improve the future. Everybody who wants to try and say, hey, we want more kids choosing STEM careers, that's why you volunteer for this type of thing.
Marlene, as you mentioned earlier, volunteering is the act of giving of oneself, and it's something that you have done multiple times for FIRST, but also FIRST Global now, this being your first experience with us. Tell us what it's like as a volunteer and working behind the scenes.
You know, I've been a volunteer for 4 years now. It's my 4th year, and it might be my 9th event, I think. And at first, when I was a student for FRC and for the first competitions, you wouldn't see all of the work that was behind it, but you could see the effect. You could see how the competition played out. So when I became a volunteer, just seeing the effect that it had on the other students, the same that it had on me, it was just so rewarding. You know, all of the, just knowing that what you're doing is helping students have a great experience, it made it worth it for me.
And what you're looking at behind us and in the coming days is going to be something that, again, is very quickly paced, but it wouldn't be possible without the attention and faculties of thousands of people behind the scenes that truly do make it possible. And hopefully we'll have some of them later on that we can talk to. We'll bring them up to the booth and interview them. We're going to try to do the same over the course of the coming days, again, as we expressed earlier on. But volunteers don't just pertain to individuals. They also pertain to teams that help one another, and not just ones that aren't present in Arena Ciudad de Mexico. There are teams across the globe, even remotely, that try to communicate with some of these teams in how they build the robots, one of which the organization is called the GSC, which is the Global STEM Corps. So in addition to the direct mentorship our teams receive at this event, there are countless ways in which like-minded scientists around the globe are actively engaged and involved in instruction. The Global STEM Corps is a network of young adults around the globe who not only have a passion for robotics, but an even deeper drive to support others as they pursue that similar path. They're both students and lifelong learners, yet teachers who feel the moral imperative to lend a hand to those who follow in their footsteps. Let's see some of them in action.
The Global STEM Corps is FIRST Global's 21st century answer to a world in need of an inspired generation of young adults who are ready to tackle global challenges. Dedicated GSC volunteers mentor FIRST Global national teams on a personal, ongoing basis by adopting a nation while that country's team builds its robot. These community-based volunteers range from high school and college students with robotics experience to entire university robotics and engineering departments. The Global STEM Corps brings the universal elements of science, cooperation, and competition to the world stage. By working with students around the world as they engineer their robots, GSC volunteers help FIRST Global competitors attain all they are capable of and inspire them to pursue fulfilling, exciting, and rewarding lives through STEM.
In addition to the Global STEM Corps, again, you just saw that video reflecting on the work that they're doing, but some other volunteers are with us this week, and 2 of them are actually going to be on La Cancha, or the actual playing fields that are down there. We've got Gabby, who we're going to be passing it to in just a second. Gabby, take it away. Oh, well, we're experiencing a couple of technical difficulties, and again, science is synonymous with failure. It's something that happens as sure as plain as day as I'm standing here in front of you, or sitting here in front of you for that matter. Typically, when we experience science, there are a lot of times where it's process of elimination, but now we're going to be passing it to Gabby. It seems that we've got her ready. Gabby, take it away. Again, there's technical difficulties still being maintained down there. Hopefully we'll be able to get down to the pits. That's where Gabby was just located. Downstairs, where our teams are currently assembling their robots as we speak, there is a lot going on down there. There's a lot of pandemonium, a lot of, not necessarily panic, but a lot of kind of last-minute critiques and things that they want to just tweak ever so slightly in order to be ready for competition.
And not only that, I feel like you can see a lot of camaraderie in between the teams. You can see the pits are right next to each other, and you can see every single country trying to offer a helping hand to the teams that are right next to them. So I feel like around the pits, you can see the sense of the first, you know, the first values. You can see them, the competition. You can see the camaraderie between all of the teams, and I think it's beautiful.
And even leading up to competition, they had a lot of specifications that had to be met. They had judges that were looking over and making sure that every single robot was up to speed and snuff for the competition ahead. We want to make sure that the rules and regulations are followed. So again, all of that kind of pandemonium, all that frenetic pace that's down there is going to be reflected in the pace of play later on. There's going to be a lot going on. But the support that these teams are going to receive are not just from the mentors trying to calm their spirits and calm some of the promotion down there. They're also going to be getting support from the families that are around the globe. Hopefully we'll bring some from Skype in later on in competition. But it is crucial for some of these families, particularly with the stream that they're following right now, that they're going to be able to witness their children firsthand competing on this stage. I have to imagine that it's an unbelievable experience for them.
I assume as well. I mean, families have seen their kids and their friends working so hard on this project, and I feel like the fact that they'll be able to see the experience and see the result, it's amazing. I think it's a privilege, you know, that they're going to be able to see the competition firsthand.
And even the ones that are thousands of miles away, it's almost as if they feel like they are right behind these kids as they compete. And distance is really not a factor here. So the support that we get from around the world is instrumental in the success here. And there will be witnesses to the teams that compete on the stage in even a few short hours. Each of these groups has a team of their own, off the camera yet on the ball, who are supporting them every step of the way. Families and fans alike have not only pushed their teams to be at their best, but they've lifted them up through the challenges that they've come with as well.
Hi from Norway. We're here to support our team, Hell Robotics, in the first global.
And we wish you all the best of luck in the competition.
Go Team Africa! We are excited to have Aida, Annie and Vanessa to represent Africa. Go, make us proud!
Hello Team USA, I just wanted to wish you guys good luck for the first global challenge. Hope you guys win, all the best.
Good luck, Team USA! Team Germany, go!
Vamos, equipo de Argentina.
Sí, vamos. Suerte.
All the best in Kenya, we love and support you.
All the best! Woo! All the best!
You know, this is a beautiful video, and I think it's very nice to see how all of the countries are coming together to support their team, their national team, in order to be in here in this competition. You can see how countries who are usually a little bit more divided get together, and how the families and the friends are just teaming up in order to support their students and what they're doing here at First Global.
Now, with some of these teams, they are much larger than what the camera is actually showing you. You're only going to be seeing maybe 5, 6 kids maximum competing for their respective nations, but there are countless more back home that contribute to the successes, even though they're the ones that are ultimately in the limelight. And for those students who are working at home to try to support them, even if the attention is not there, trust when I say that the work that you are doing is what's allowing us to move forward and in the right direction.
Yes, you're right, because it's not only the students that are part of the team, it's the students, it's the mentors, it's every single person who helped them to get here, to get to Mexico City First Global Challenge 2018. I'm pretty sure most of these teams wouldn't be here without the support that they've been getting from everyone around them.
Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to the support that they are also going to be receiving, it's also in the form of the hospitality that the country of Mexico has given us. It's been a spectacular thing for us to witness. Coming from Washington, D.C., and over the course of the year that we have had to try to plan this competition out, it's not only been spectacular for me as a neighbor to this spectacular nation, but something that's been very humbling to witness as well, and I couldn't be happier to share it with you, so thank you for that.
And I'm pretty sure First Global is going to just keep on growing from now on, you know? From its humble beginning to now, First Global has expanded its reach, scope, and influence in ways that we can even see comparing last year's competition in DC to now. As it continues to pick up steam and support around the globe, the future looks bright for the work we're doing, the people involved in it, and the world of tomorrow. The future is as daunting as it is exiting because of the unknowns it holds. But what we do know is that First Global will be there, as will its mission of bringing us closer together. And in the world that we've proudly shaped, that's going to be moving on. You know, First Global is going to be here around for a while, and it's going to be changing the world.
And as we evolve, let's take a look at it.
My hopes for the future of First Global are that it becomes institutionalized in every country. It brings to each country the opportunity to create a prestigious event where kids can learn about how accessible and how exciting and how much fun science and technology are, but also that they can do it in their home country. Imagine an army of kids around the world that walk away from these events comfortable and confident that they have the skills of science and technology to build a better future. I see the first global organization in 5 years, certainly in 10 years, being well established in most, if not all, of the countries on this planet. I see it being a tool used for international diplomacy, international cooperation, international exchange of kids and ideas and universities and companies and governments that will learn that we can all work on the same problems collectively and solve all of our problems together.
Even though what you're seeing is the culmination of all of these countries working together to descend on this one location, one thing in that video to think about is what Dean had mentioned in trying to expand the army, so to speak, and making sure that every country, when they go back home, has their own kind of network of first global scientists, activists, enthusiasts that are able to learn from one another and truly build within their own country. That's kind of how we're going to galvanize this group, is really to try to start from the grassroots level and then work its way up.
And you know, Tim, I have no doubt that First Global is going to make it. You know, President Enrique Peña Nieto mentioned earlier in his speech how exactly 50 years ago the Olympics had the competitions in here. And you know, 50 years later, they have even more countries. They've grown into what it is. So I wouldn't be surprised if 50 years from now, First Global Challenge is also evolving and changing more people, more students, and having more countries participate here.
In 50 years from now, the problems that our young learners and leaders of tomorrow are going to have to face are going to be drastically different potentially than the ones we have today. And we need to be, you know, very pliable in our methodologies and the way we try to think about the world in which we exist and in solving some of those problems. But one of the ways in which this competition has been framed in mind is with respect to the 14 grand challenges, and we're going to be reflecting on that in a little bit. But those 14 grand challenges, last year we had focused on water in particular. This year we're focusing on energy and its impact. And so we're going to be taking you into the reason why we focus on those grand challenges. As our world has changed over time, so too have its problems. As a byproduct, the solutions and measures by which we can make the world a better place have also evolved. We're preparing our youth for a world that we don't yet see, with problems that we don't yet know the full scale of, and in the hopes of producing solutions that don't yet exist. That, in and of itself, is a challenge, so the National Academy of Engineering, in consultation with the countless notable scientists, technologists, and futurists, have come up with 14 concrete challenges that we should be focusing our efforts on addressing. Last year's game, H2O Flow, considered the impact of water access and treatment, but as we'll come to learn in the coming days, this year's challenge brings our attention and effort to energy. Let's learn about energy impact. It's very important to look at those 14 grand challenges, and again, there are so many, I'm sure, that have been left off of that list. Some will be added over time, some might be taken away. But energy, in the focus of this week and the work that we're doing, is something that really does affect us all. It's something that we all use, it's something that we all expend, and it's something that is all going to bring us into the world of tomorrow if we can hone it well, if we can adapt to alternative energies, and then ways of moving forward that are less environmentally degrading, so to speak, as you had mentioned earlier on.
Yes, and you know, I find very interesting, or I think it's actually a very good thing, that the students that are participating here in First Global, they're young. You know, they're going to see the effects of these 14 grand challenges, and by getting them involved in these 14 challenges and getting them to think about solutions, they're going to be able to, you know, harvest these ideas in them and maybe think of the great solution that we need in order to save the world and maybe solve some of these 14 great challenges.
We had talked about how technology, the world, its evolution, it's happening in more grand scale and in larger amounts over time. Yes. Energy is something that even within the past 30, 40, 50 years has very much transformed itself. And you're looking at behind us on the stage that these students will soon compete on, the different alternative energies, the different renewables that are going to be taking us into the future, that are going to be taking these young learners, leaders, scientists, science zealots for that matter, into a place where we focus less on resources in particular that, again, are environmentally degrading, ones that, although cheaper and are easy to access, are ones that are really kind of setting us back. And so energy was the main focus this year. It very well is going to change next year when we have our next games, but something worth noting here.
Yes, and I'm actually very happy, or I think it's a very good thing, that teams are getting to know the different ways to produce energy. So they're getting to know, solar energy, they're getting to know wind turbines, they're getting to know reaction plants, different things that maybe they didn't even know existed, and now as 12, 13, 14-year-old kids, they now know about it, they're not interested in it. So I think that's a direct effect of this game, which is Energy Impact, and I think it's going to have an amazing result.
And even if a particular country is focusing on one specific type of energy, again, being exposed to all those different types is crucial. It's integral in making sure that we're developing global solutions to problems that we all experience. And energy does very much affect all of our teams, and though they share a common bond in joining us for this event, and though they share their common language of technology and coding, for example, it's something that they can all kind of bond with. And so it's something that is important to mention as we start looking into these STEM-related fields, into the work that we're doing, into the learning that's hopefully taking place on this field, but then beyond into the classrooms when they end up going home.
Yes, and it's not only on the field, it's also off the field. All through the building season, in the pits, they're learning like so many things that are actually part of this first global experience. And so it's now time to kind of look into our different teams and how energy very much does impact all of them and what they do in real life.
This exercise is going on. Your screen may turn black. Don't be scared. It's energy failure. It happens here all the time and it's real.
Like you can see, as I'm doing this interview, we just have a blackout now. So in the future, we'll try to create robots that can help to stabilize the energy supply.
The access to affordable and reliable energy is fundamental in our everyday lives as we depend on these resources in the simplest task we do.
When I think about energy, I think about the sun, which here in Greece we have plenty of. I will take this experience and use it as a tool to help my country harvest that energy.
I think the theme this year really resonates with me, energy impact, because Grenada is making strides in order to decrease our dependence on fossil fuels.
Our main source of energy has been petroleum, crude oil, like diesel, kerosene, and this costs away lots of money. So the supply of energy in our country is quite poor and fluctuating.
I don't think it's the best option because crude oil is a non-renewable resource and it may run out soon, and it also contributes to climate change problems.
You realize the importance of renewable energy, and it can help Zimbabwe by making renewable energy the main source of energy.
We believe that ensuring a sustainable economic development depends on the good use and the development of both the solar and the wind capacity.
What I want to do is put everybody in the move. I want to make a difference.
Each one of these countries comes from a different part of the globe that has different resources to expend at its disposal. You think about certain teams that have, for example, more well-equipped to deal with things like hydropower, for example, if they have flowing rivers and have water that moves freely throughout the country. There are teams like Greece that had been mentioned earlier on in that video that has a lot of sunlight, and so solar might be the best option for them. One thing about this game that you're going to be seeing is that they have the ability to kind of build a portfolio, so to speak. They have the ability to choose between all of the different types of renewables, including nuclear fusion, including wind power, including solar power, and also the combustion plants that, again, our 20th century world is still very much using. But as we move into the 21st, it's important to use some of those alternative energies.
Yes, and now that we're talking about the game, it's also very important to note that the different ways to produce energy, you know how some are renewable and some aren't, you can see that reflected on the game itself. So the scoring system is a direct representation, I guess I would say, about how renewable energies, kids are going to keep adding up points for their teams and everything. And I think that's a way for them to learn about how renewable resources or renewable energies are better for the community and they're better for their teams here in the match. And team, I know you studied a lot about renewable energies when you were younger.
So I actually taught middle school back in the States. I taught middle school earth science and sustainability, something that really wasn't reflected in the curriculum at the time and something that we were very proud to build because it's all the more important as we go forward. When it comes to alternative energies and the growing population that we have across the world, it's actually kind of like a dual-edged problem. We have not just a growing population, but we also have a growing population that's focusing on a finite number of resources, and they're only going to be getting smaller and smaller over time. So we have to, just kind of by the nature of the beast, really develop solutions that we might not even have yet. So that's very important.
Yes, and I think it's not only the fact that people or that countries, they have bigger problems, of course, and with the growing amount of people in each country. I think that's not only the problem, and not only the fact that they don't consider renewable energies, but also that they might be costly, you know? And I think that's part of the main problem. And the energy, in order for us to be able to push renewable energies forward, we need to have kids who are conscious about it. We need to have kids who are energetic and who are passionate about renewable energies. And they are the energy, you know, they are the exact result. If they are working for it, and if they are working and pushing, if they're pushing for renewable energies to be used in their countries in the future, when they are the leaders of their countries, we might see renewable energies more present in different countries all around.
And so in grappling with some of those 21st century choices, countries must choose between the cost effectiveness, efficiency, and environmental impact. Since the broader evolution of fossil fuel use, we've been engaging in energy choices that not only have a finite supply, as I mentioned earlier, but that are also degrading the beautiful world that we know and share. Unfortunately, there are tried and true technologies that have proven to be more environmentally friendly, socially responsible, and we're going to be looking at the energies of the future with the following video.
Yes.
We have to work together for this planet.
Collaboration among all countries is necessary.
Become the inspiration for a great future.
I would like to make the renewable energy that helps the future.
The future is ours.
To make a better planet.
We are the energy of the future.
We are the energy of the future.
We are the energy of the future.
We are the energy of
the future.
We are the energy of the future.
What's so important to note in that video is not just the energy choices they make, but the energy, the youthful vigor that all of these scientists are going to be showing in the coming days, and certainly a market to tap into for all of those who are at home and watching. And so I think finally we're ready to go down to the pits. I think Gabby is going to be ready. Again, that panic and pandemonium, hopefully we'll be able to hear amidst some of the madness that's down there. Gabby, take it away.
Hello everybody, here we are in the pit area and here we have Jorge, and I would like to ask him about his great experience here in the first global competition.
Well, what First Global has really taught me and really impacted me at the beginning of the competition was the way the relationships are between the teams, how they're always supporting of each other, like always trying to help. And then even if the robot is not doing so well, they're not doing great matches, they're always with a smile and trying to help everyone they can.
Of course, so the attitude is very important for this competition. All right, so what else can you tell us about your robot, mainly the construction?
Well, a robot was a lot of trial and error. Like there was a lot of things that we had to build, program, and then at the end we had to say, no, we can't use this because of this and that. So it was a long journey because we divided each other like, okay, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, and you're going to do that. And after that, we got the best ideas out of each one, and that's how a robot was formed. But yeah, it's really been a big trial and error.
Oh, and what else can you tell me about your great memory being part of this Mexican team?
Well, I mean, I didn't imagine myself being here. Like a few years before, I wouldn't imagine that one day I would represent Mexico. So being here and being with my team, which half of the team I didn't even meet before this robotics competition has been a really great experience because I have been able to get along with people who I never knew I would meet.
All right. So if we can go into the pit so we can see better the robot. So come with me. Okay, so here we go. Here we have the Mexican team. They are preparing themselves for the first match that they are having here in the first global. So what can you tell us about the challenge, specifically the play game?
Okay, so what the challenge is about this year is that the robot has to grab certain cubes that are represented as fuel cubes. They have to go burn these in the combustion plants. They also have to grab a solar panel, which they have to take from the ground and go and locate in a special plant where then a human player can grab it and hang it and will produce energy for the whole match. They also have to spin a windmill, which will also produce energy for the match. Our robot can do all of these tasks. We made it so we're not really reliable on other teams.
All right, so here we have some close-ups. What is the biggest challenge being in the play-by-play game?
I think the biggest challenge for us, like that we had to do, was the solar panels, because we had to find a way to do it fast, agile, and without much having to park in a special spot. We had to do it really fast. So after we made our design, we had to practice and practice and practice and practice and practice, so we could get good at controlling the robot. So that would be the biggest challenge that we have.
Oh, all right. And how much time have you been practicing this?
Well, we've been practicing for almost a month and a half. Yeah, since I'm from Chihuahua and the other driver is from Mexico City, it's been kind of tough having to communicate each other, but in the end we could get it working.
Okay, thank you so much, Jorge. So we're going back with a team, okay? So thank you so much.
The impact of energy on our daily lives is more far-reaching than simply the flipping of a switch. Energy powers our transportation, lights up our homes, furthers our educations, and runs our economies. However, energy shortages and a lack of reliable infrastructure are impacting people all around the world. Daily blackouts and expensive electrical resources are a common reality. Global energy demand is rising, especially in the developing world. And the current infrastructures we have in place won't be sufficient for meeting world needs. It's estimated that energy use will go up by 50% by 2040. Increased use of fossil fuels is also both unsustainable and will worsen climate change, so alternatives must be found. Two of the National Academy of Engineering's 14 grand challenges seek to help address energy concerns, making solar energy more economical and obtaining energy from nuclear fusion. There's been a push to harness renewable sources like solar and wind. However, this energy is difficult to store long-term, is unreliable due to fluctuations in weather, and initial setup can be expensive. Nuclear fusion is a promising renewable energy source, but efforts must be made to scale up the process to a commercial level while still being economical and having little environmental impact. None of these sources are perfect yet, but by innovating better and more sustainable solutions to generating and providing access to energy, we can help break the cycle of poverty and lift up entire countries while enhancing quality of life for all.
Although the focus of this week's competition is going to be on the students themselves, it's critical for us to look again behind the scenes at not just the volunteers, but the other people who are essential in making this work possible. And so we're going to be interviewing people throughout the week, the first of whom we're very, very excited to welcome to the stage. I was fortunate enough to interview him last year. We have Randy Atkins with us. He's the Communications and Media Director for the National Academy of Engineering that we had mentioned earlier on with the 14 Grand Challenges. Randy, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And so some of the questions that we have for you include the 14 Grand Challenges, themselves. How did you all come to creating those 14? It seems like a rather arbitrary number.
That's right. Well, so what actually happened is at the turn of the century, the National Academy of Engineering looked back at the last century and wanted to look at what were the great achievements of engineering in the last century. And they came up with 20 great achievements in the last century. They include things like electrification, the automobile, the airplane, refrigeration, space travel, telephone, internet. You know, our world is completely transformed by engineering in just the last century. And so here at the beginning of this new century, we decided to look forward and do something similar, sort of a mirror image, but not to predict the future, because predictions always fail, but instead to look forward and say, you know, what would be the game changers? What would make our world so much better if we could accomplish it? And I had the same idea as you did. I led this project, and because it was a communications effort from the outset to get the public more aware and interested in engineering. And I had the same idea. I said, we're going to do 21 challenges for the 21st century, but we had this dream team of leading technological thinkers and doers.
I was just going to ask.
Yeah, including Dean Kamen, by the way, was on this committee.
Okay.
Wow. And they came up with 14, and they felt like when they got to that 14 that they had a good set, and so that was it.
Yeah, and I was going to say, as far as the actual academy itself, for those at home, it might be an anathema. They don't necessarily know who those people are. I've been mentioning that they're scientists, they're engineers, they're futurists. But tell me a little bit more about the actual people themselves. You mentioned Dean, but who else is involved in some of these conversations, and what are those conversations behind those closed doors like?
Sure, and I should also probably tell you a little bit about who the National Academy of Engineering is. Yeah, so the U.S. National Academy of Engineering is a part of the national academies in the United States. It also includes the National Academy of Sciences and the National Academy of Medicine. We were actually created back in the 1800s by Lincoln to advise the government on issues involving science and technology, to help make policy. Most people think we're part of the government, but we're not. We're completely independent of the government. And so when we bring these high-level committees together, you know, they ask us to give them answers to policy questions, and sometimes they like the answers and sometimes they don't, but you know, we're independent.
Sometimes, yeah.
So the committee that we did, the Grand Challenges for Engineering Committee, was chaired by a former Secretary of Defense, U.S. Secretary of Defense Bill Perry, and it was an international committee, so we had people from all over the world, a very diverse committee. And what we do is we tried to find people that were big thinkers, like Dean Kamen. We had also Ray Kurzweil, who's a big futurist. We had Larry Page, who, as you know, is the co-founder of Google. We had Bernadine Healy, who was the former head of the National Institutes of Health. So we had scientists, engineers, and medical people, but all top people in their field.
And so among all of the different kind of issues that you're going to be dealing with, and again, I mentioned earlier on about how those problems are going to be evolving over time. You mentioned having 21 challenges for the 21st century. Can you kind of give us a glimpse at what some of those challenges you think, at least personally, might be?
Oh, well, I mean, I don't want to
of course, you're not. It's all speculation. It's all speculation.
But maybe it's helpful, unless you've already talked about it, to talk about what the 14 grand challenges are.
Yeah, so as far as last year's competition, we focused on water equity and issues, and then this year, the energy impact game that we have actually focuses on two particular of those 14 challenges. And if you want to highlight and touch on some of those, we'd very much appreciate kind of your insight into why they in particular made the list.
Right. So actually, maybe an easier way to talk about it rather than to list the 14 is that we did it in 4 themes, which are very important. We did in sustainability, health, security,
and joy of living.
Right. And as I probably told you before, I think that last one is very important because solving grand challenges is not all about solving problems. It's about just making the world better and dreaming up new ideas, and that's what engineering is about. It's about creativity. So yeah, but the energy-related grand challenges are of course to create energy from fusion, to make solar energy economical. And you know, those are important issues. If we could, you know, fusion is a difficult one. The saying is that, you know, it's 30 years away and always will be 30 years away. But
ever eluding us.
But if that could ever be done, you know, the world would be completely transformed in a great way.
And so when we talk about nuclear fusion in particular, it is a tried and true technology as long as it is, you know, safely, it safely works, so to speak. And I know that there are a lot of concerns out there for, you know, some people who might be detractors of it or might not necessarily be proponents of trying to invest a lot of time and energy into it. What would you say to some of those people at home?
Well, you know, there's two forms of nuclear energy. One is fission, which is what we do use now. And the problem with that is that it's got radioactive byproducts. So that's the part that, you know, they have to do something with it. But it's, you know, relatively clean energy other than that. Fusion, which we haven't accomplished yet in terms of energy, would be different. It would cause no radioactive byproducts and create completely clean energy, you know, unlimited supplies. So.
And on a more personal level, just getting away from the science for a little bit, because, you know, I'm starting to, you know, get myself in circles a little bit too. When you talked about the joy of living for the 4 basic themes, on a personal level, it's something that you find to be not only validating but important. How did you come to that, even personally, like in your own journey as a scientist? What does it mean to you, joy of living? How have you experienced that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that joy of living is what I think all these kids here are doing. They want to make the world a better place all around the world. And as Dean said in his talk this morning, not just for a limited few countries, but for all the countries. I think, that's the goal that we're trying to set out here with the Grand Challenges is how do we make the world a better place? How do we make life more enjoyable? I think engineers have done that in the last century, as I mentioned, in the great achievements. I think the world's been transformed in a great way. But there's so much more we could do and to raise the standard of living for people around the world. And I think that's the power of the Grand Challenges. We have several programs for students that focus on the Grand Challenges, and what it does is it engages these kids. The kids these days, Dean is right, are motivated by, he started this because he saw the kids get excited about doing sports, right?
He saw the energy, the energy that all of the kids had inside them.
That's right, and they are excited about doing sports, but I think these days in particular they're also very excited about making a difference, about changing the world. And so this connection of what they're doing out here on the field, the technical things they're doing to make their robots beat the other team, these same things can be used to solve the big issues of our time. And I think that's the message, and I think that's what inspires young people today.
And fortunately, that message has been echoed not just by yourself, but you had even mentioned Abraham Lincoln earlier on. I mean, you're talking about eons ago, basically, in the annals of history as someone who's notable in American politics, but there are so many more people that are like that, and even in the modern present day, that are doing that work right now.
Science and engineering has always been important, right? So even back in the time of Lincoln, in the midst of the Civil War, he realized, we can't just do the same thing all the time. We need to advance our technology if we're going to stay ahead. And it's the same way today. So the competition about staying ahead is healthy because it helps us drive progress forward, but the cooperation is also important.
Of course.
And I think that's why we're very eager to make the Grand Challenges for engineering go global as well. In addition to first global going global, the 14 Grand Challenges for engineering that we created were never meant to be U.S. Grand Challenges for engineering. We had an international committee, but the committee was very focused on these are global Grand Challenges. And we have a series of, by the way, of global Grand Challenges summits, as you know, that are happening, where we're bringing people together from around the world to see how we can cooperate to solve these Grand Challenges.
And now that you mentioned solving these Grand Challenges, and you mentioned the achievements before, I wouldn't be surprised if 30, 40 years from now we saw the achievements that have become these 14 global challenges, and maybe because of some of these kids.
Absolutely, that's the goal. And I think you're right. I think we will. And I think that we will because we're motivating kids at events like this and just through showing them the things that they can do to make a difference in the world. I think that's, again, I'm repeating myself, but that's what motivates young people today. They want to make a difference and change the world.
Lather, rinse, repeat. Sometimes that's an important thing, and people need to hear it, honestly. So, Randy, the work that you're doing is not only incredibly important and worthwhile, but it's something that, from a personal perspective and as a science teacher, I'm honored to be in the presence of. So thank you for everything that you're doing. Best of luck as you move forward. Again, it's going to be tough trying to build and only have 21 problems, but we're going to have to try to focus and really pool those resources together. So, unfortunately, our time is shortened at an end, but right now we're going to take it to the pits with Sebas, who's down as well, and one of our volunteers, and we're ready to go.
Thank you very much. Okay, está bien, ¿verdad? Okay, thank you very much. We're down here at the pits with Team Indonesia. Hi guys, can you tell me your names?
My name is Sandra.
And my name's Iman. Okay, well, I'm Sebastian. I'm gonna ask you some questions about how has First Global impacted your life?
For this year's First Global, it really helped me to understand more about technologies and robotics. And I met a lot of great people through the event, so it really benefited my life.
So before the First Global, I was like a shy person, but now I can more brave to talk to other person in other country all around the world.
Well, I see you've mounted a hell of a pit. It's really cool, guys. You've done a pretty good work. So can you tell me a little bit about your robot? What's your strategy for the game? Can you explain it?
We want to focus first on the solar panel, so that the faster we get the points for the solar panel is better for the scoring. And then we're going to score the fuel cube from this cube intake and outtake it, and then work together with the other teams, of course. and then we're going to do that until the end of the game. But our robot can do all of the functions that I simulated in the game.
Okay, I see you've integrated a different type of chassis than any other team, right? So can you tell me a little bit of how this mechanism works?
So this type of drivetrain, it can move to 8 different directions. So it's not just forward, backward, left, and right. It can also do like the between, like forward and right, like that. And so because of the feel and the game time is so limited, we have to search for a faster way for the robot to move.
Okay, well, thank you. It's a really good robot. I hope you do very well. What was the process and the strategy you decided to like design and decide what mechanisms will the robot contain? What was the process you took?
Oh, before we have tried months to make different designs until we finally found this final one. We have tried really a lot of designs before it, and we record it in our engineering notebook, and you can maybe read it. It has all of our procedures and how we have this final product.
Well, that's really interesting. Wow, I'm just really impressed with you. How was your flight here? How many hours did you have to travel to get here?
Actually, we have 2 days to fly here, to come here.
2 whole days?
A lot of delays in between transits. Yeah, so it was really long.
So you didn't have problems with the robot not arriving or not like lost maybe packages or something, right? Maybe many teams have had that problem. The robot hasn't arrived yet, so you didn't have the problem, I guess.
No, we don't. Luckily, we don't.
Well, that's really nice. I wanted to ask you, what are you exactly? Like, are you a team that had already been formed, or did you like heard about First Global and said like, okay, I like that? Are you a school team, or are you like a personal like hobby thing, or what?
Oh, we have this like robotic club in our school, and it is started since 2017. Our seniors came to First Global Challenge the first time, and we are the second generation for it. And we have a club named Rendezvous 2045, and that is there's a lot of us behind us, and we are the representative of all of them.
Okay, thank you, Team Indonesia, for this interview. Now let's go to Marlene and Team.
Thank you, Sebas. Very much appreciate it. As we, again, start interviewing more people over the course of this week, we now have a mentor. And we had mentioned that mentorship earlier on is something so integral to the work that we are doing here at First. And we're fortunate enough to have Roxanne Reddy joining us right here. She is actually the mentor for Team South Africa. Roxanne, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us what it's like being a mentor. And actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's a little bit more personal for you than maybe other mentors, even though it's very important for us to really embody the students that we're representing and that you're working with. But your son is actually on the team, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, my son is actually the team captain. His name is Mikhail Reddy. So for me, it's very important because I have 3 sons, and they all aspire to be engineers. And coming from South Africa, most of the challenges that First Global is focusing on, we actually face in South Africa. Last year, we focused on water, and currently we have a problem with water. So access to clean water is still a problem in our rural areas. And this year, we're focusing on energy impact, and it's something that we're actually struggling with in a lot of communities. We have something that we call load shedding. So maybe for 5 to 6 hours a day, we have no electricity. And in rural communities, some people still don't have electricity.
And for all the students who are in South Africa right now who are not present with us, and you talk about your nation having some of those problems, what kind of message would you send to them, being a part of this grand experience? And then when you go back home, what's kind of the next step for you?
So the message I'd like to give all South African kids is that you can do it. It's possible for any South African kid to be here to compete on this scale. And the next step for us is we'd like to take the First Global Challenge national. Currently, it's only in Gauteng. We have 9 provinces in South Africa, and we'd like to actually take this to all provinces.
Perfect.
So we'd like to grow the First Global Challenge in South
Exactly
Africa.
what we were talking about earlier on.
Yes, exactly
Great.
that.
And so in trying to do that and trying to grow that brand, basically when you go home in that robotics community, you're going to be celebrities. And so you got to wield that power and use it, you know, in the best way possible. And I'm sure it's something that you are certainly up for doing. But even for people who are not experienced in robotics like myself, how do you really get that momentum going for people who have none of that experience?
So I think the key is to actually get the kids at a very young age. Currently, we don't upskill our kids. Kids that are exposed to this are more in the higher school, so they start from grade 8 to grade 12. So I think the fundamental is let us go back to grassroots levels. Let us get the kids from grade R up to grade 7. Let us introduce STEM and let us teach them the importance of it. So I think we really need to go back to that level.
Yeah, we had mentioned accessibility earlier on, and not being respected to socioeconomics, not being respected to gender, and certainly not age. And it seems like that's the chord you're trying to hit, and it's very important.
That's right.
And Roxanne, I know you were saying right now that it's very important to get the kids when they're young. I mean, you have 3 sons, and the 3 of them want to be engineers, so I'm pretty sure you must have done something
right, yeah.
in order to get them interested in engineering. Can you tell us more about that?
So I think maths is the fundamental to everything. And my kids were fortunate enough in primary school to have a school that enforced maths. So I think kids really need to focus on mathematics. Science is equally important, but if we can get kids to improve on their mathematics skills, it will really help them. In South Africa, we have a tremendous failure rate in mathematics. So it's something that we really need to make easy. We need to make it fun. So kids are really scared about mathematics, but it's not scary.
And gaining some of that confidence, you know, at an early age, and it builds on itself over time. Just like if someone fails time and time again, it tends to break people down, and it's really important to try to build that, you know, human spirit and that that resilience in trying to make sure that they're taking steps forward. When you talk about actually mentoring, I would like to consider myself one just as a teacher. I think teachers by association and just by the nature of the business are mentors. But you kind of have to have that moment of inspiration in order to say, this is not only something I can do, it's something that I feel the imperative to do. When did that moment come for you?
I think saying that we have so many challenges in South Africa, knowing that this world is actually not for us, it's for our children, and it's for their children. And if we don't actually be the change that we want to see in this world, our children are not going to have a world to live in. And one of my main passions is to help other people and to uplift communities. So it's always been a passion of mine. And getting into First Global has just helped me fulfill that passion.
That's great.
Yeah.
And everyone has their own different style, just like the different teams have their different robots here. We'll talk about that for a wealth of hours, I'm sure, over the next couple of days here. How would you kind of define the process that you undertook with your students? Again, I know that you've got one son on the team, but what was your style interacting with these students like as they were going through that building process?
So I think like all kids are not equal. So kids have different strengths. So I try to work on their different strengths.
You
so
sound like a teacher right now. Okay.
And I'm not. So we have kids that are introverts in our team, and then we have kids that are real extroverts. But you just need to tap on each child's talent, and that is what we did to bring the team together. Because if you visit our pit, you would actually see that there's some kids that are shy and don't actually want to speak, but they have a wealth of knowledge in them. So you just need to try and engage with them to get it out.
You need to find that access.
Yes.
You need to access that pathway. It's just a matter of trying to find out how to get there, right?
Yes.
And so I completely agree. Every student is different, and every person who's observing this competition is different. I've got a very different perspective on it than, say, Marlene does, considering she's experienced first on a whole different level as well.
I think everyone has a very different experience from what you said and a very different perspective. But I mean, I know you were saying you're not a teacher, but you're a mentor, and you're teaching your sons, you're teaching the students on your team to be involved in something like this. So I want to know if you could tell us a little bit of how you've seen the members of your team evolve from the beginning of the competition to up to this point.
So I think for one girl in particular, when she joined us, she was very quiet. And all she would do is what she needed to do, but she wouldn't speak much. But just the other day, I heard her challenging her team members, which was great, because her voice has actually come out. And I think by working together with each other and feeling comfortable with each other, you can actually overcome any challenge.
And finding your own voice is incredibly important, but you need to have the right people in front of you to show you that it's okay to really come out of that comfort zone. Did you ever have a moment like that, immersing yourself in robotics for the first time? When did that happen? How did that go down, basically?
So I think for me, I have no idea how to build a robot.
Okay,
so
you and I both.
I've
That
learned.
makes 3 of us.
Okay.
So I've learned a lot from the kids, and I've sat and I've watched them. We've spent countless hours. We've been up for the last 2 months till 12 o'clock at night, waking up at 4, building this robot. So for me, the aha moment has been nearly every day, because they teach you something different every day. They would build a robot, tomorrow they would break it down and they'd construct a whole new concept.
Wow.
So for me, it's just I'm learning every day about this.
And I mean, from what I hear, you're not only learning, but you're teaching by example. Because when you say that you're with them every day, you stay up at night, you wake up early. I mean, it's your example. And if you're learning with them, I'm pretty sure they're going to be just like you. They're going to be wanting to make a change in South Africa. They're going to be wanting to inspire other people around them to do exactly what you're doing.
You know, that's exactly what they want to do.
And also having the humility, as you mentioned, saying, I don't know how to build a robot. Well, I sure as hell don't know either. But trying to show these kids it's okay to not know, but to at least try, to extend yourself a little bit further, to push that boundary. It's got to be pretty much the main message that you're trying to send through everything that you're doing. But as you've learned more about robotics, we have time and time again talked about how the students are interacting across teams. Do the mentors do the same? And if so, what kind of conversations have you had with them?
So we were fortunate enough to have Jessa from Brazil originally, but he's now in Australia, actually come and visit us. So he paid a personal visit to us. And I think his visit was invaluable. He was there for 2 days, and the kids just took in every word that he said. So the first competition has actually opened up a lot of channels for us. So it's not like we've ever been alone. We even had Skype calls with the team from America.
I was going to say the GSC, we mentioned the Global STEM Corps earlier on.
Yes, so we did have that as well. So it's really, we haven't been alone. And even in South Africa, we found a few guys that have been willing to assist our kids. And they've been giving their time in their personal capacity to come and assist them.
And when you talk about learning from the kids, and it's not just your kids that you're directly working with, but I'm sure the GSC teams you're talking to, again, you had someone from Australia come and visit. What have you learned about yourself personally? Earlier on, I think I mentioned, personal growth and not just growing as a group and growing as a nation and growing as a global community. How have you personally grown from the experience in trying to encourage other people out there who might be like you and say, I can't build a robot either, but I want to get involved, I want to help out? What kind of message would you send to them?
I think I would tell them to believe in themselves, firstly, because if I can do it, anybody can do it. We all have the power to make a change in the world, and it starts with us.
I completely agree. It starts with us, and we very much appreciate the time that you've given us, Roxanne. We're very grateful for the opportunity. I know that your students are as well. Hopefully, we'll get some other mentors up here over the course of the coming days. But I know that you've got a lot of work ahead. You've got a lot of planning ahead with these kids. You'll get back down into the trenches. The conversations, I'm sure, are going rapidly. What do you say to them to try to calm their spirits right before they get up on stage?
So I tell them they've done their best. They've worked very hard, and they must just do their best, and everything's going to be okay.
If they're only averaging like 4 hours of sleep a night, I have to imagine that it's
really
a tough message to deliver.
Yes, they really have. So they need to just believe in themselves.
Good. Well, we believe in you, Roxanne. We wish you the best of luck on the field. Thank you so much for joining us. Right now, we're going to take it back to the pits.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, so here we are back in the pit area. I'm Gaby Tovar, and here we have our new guest for this interview. Please, can you tell me your name?
Yeah, hi, first of all, my name is Dwayne Mattis, and I represent Team Costa Rica.
Welcome here. So I would like to know more about your trip from Costa Rica to here. So how many hours did you spend traveling?
So, well, the trip was delightful, but it was many hours because we had to stop first in San Salvador, and we had to stay there for like around 6 hours in the airport. So the only thing we could do was to go back and forth from the airport from one gate to another. But it was pretty cool because the kids got to know another place instead of just Mexico. So it was very, very, very nice.
It sounds that it was. So now I would like to know more about your first global experience. So can you tell me please about the process of building the robot?
Oh yeah, of course, definitely. Okay, first of all, the first global people or the guys, they send us the kit, right? We get the kit from them specifically. And the process of building the robot is basically designing and then trial and error. So designing, why? Because we needed to approach the mission or the objectives that First Global gives us. In this case, it's about energy impact and the different types of missions that you could do during the matches, right? And so with that being said, we, as the team, we sit down And what we do is that we lay out the different designs that could help us best attack those purposes or those objectives within the match.
I would like now to ask you about in which way you guys were selected to represent Costa Rica.
So the process of being selected for our case is an open process. We have to actually thank the city of Fort Limon, specifically the library, the public library there. It's called Mayor Thomas Lynch, and also the American Embassy, because they have a program there in Limon, Costa Rica, which is called American Corners and Makerspace. So the thing about the American Corners and the Makerspace is that it's a space, basically a room that we have in Limon, Costa Rica, that it enables us to make stuff, to create, to be more creative as a kid, as a community. So we have their 3D printers, we have different types of robots, we have comics books, we have a bunch of everything. So thanks to them, we got the chance to know about this programs, First Global. And also we came last year and this year too, and they invited us. And we, as I said, we did an open process. And what we did with that is basically invited kids from all over Costa Rica and all over the country to participate in this First Global activity. And these are the ones that were selected.
So we're out of time, but it was awesome to know you. So welcome to Mexico, enjoy here, and see you on the field. So yeah, so welcome, and you're welcome. Now we're going back with Marlene and team. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gabby. Very much appreciated. One great thing about this telecast, if you're watching at home, you get saved from having to listen to me and Marlene talk for the next 2.5 days. And we love getting to hear from the kids. You just heard Costa Rica talk about their experience, how they got here, how they've been transformed as a part of being immersed within it. And we also very much relish the time to talk to people through the interview process and the people who really made this event possible. And so we'd like to actually bring our first sponsor up to the stage. Matt Bell is joining us. He is the head of the Global and Strategic Alliances at Autodesk. It's a critical company that I myself have actually been involved with as a teacher. We'll talk about Tinkercad in a little bit, but we very much appreciate you joining us, Matt.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
When it comes to technology, something that we're greatly emphasizing here, you being in every way, shape, and form a kind of a catalyst for getting people involved in technology, what would you say is the greatest strength of technology and how you've been using it?
Okay. So we're passionate about trying to break down as many of the barriers as possible as well to students using technology. Hence why a lot of the Autodesk support we're giving to schools and students around the world is to make it freely available. So what we're seeing are that actually when you can put these tools in the hands of young people from any community across any country in the world, they are actually seeing that they can make a difference by using that product. And then when we're tying that in with things like 3D printing and robotics programs like FIRST, the world's their oyster. And very, very quickly, you can step back as a teacher. I previously was a teacher as well. You can step back and you can just watch them flourish and grow. And we're seeing a prime example of that here today at the First Global events as well.
Of course, it seems like once you introduce and once you give them the pathways to access it, you can kind of take your hands off the steering wheel because human nature is just innately curious. We want to learn, we want to grow, we want to have fun, we want to play. And it sounds like the products that you're trying to introduce do just that.
Absolutely. So right at the early age, you mentioned earlier with Tinkercad, a fantastic 3D modeling online product which is perfect for students to be able to start creating in 3D. And then as they progress up through, they'll use tools like Autodesk Fusion 360, which the teams here will be using to create their final design. So we're trying to take them along that path into industry because it's important for us that the students are not only getting an experience of 3D design and STEM, they're getting excited about the possibility of careers, but they are importantly using the tools that industry are needing them to come out with that skill set. And the first program is a perfect example of that. We're trying to replicate the workflow that students would then use in the workplace. So how do you use 3D design tools to digitally visualize a product, run tests on it before you put it into a manufacturing process and phase. And that is exactly what we're able to do by supporting the teams here at First.
And I think you're doing a wonderful job at that, considering you see all these teams come, how talented they are, and how engaged they are with again, the products that you're introducing to them. And this, again, is just one drop in the bucket compared to the global scale of Autodesk and what you're truly doing and the mission that you all have. Dean had mentioned earlier in his speech about having the glass half full, glass half empty kind of dilemma, and how scientists don't really ask that question. They say, is this water clean? How have you asked yourself the questions to prepare students for that 21st century, not just with respect to employment, but with respect to kind of solving the world's problems?
Yeah, and things have changed. So we've been a proud sponsor and partner of FIRST since right at the start. So when Dean came up with the first idea almost 30 years ago. So the approach has obviously changed over those years, but one of the things we really try to do now is to identify what excites a young person, what excites a young girl, a young boy, anyone from around different environments. Is it robotics? Is it sport? So what Dean said was absolutely right today. This is a sport. And I think Dean quite often says it's a sport where everybody can actually turn professional. And that is exactly it. So we're looking at these as ideas to inspire and enthuse people to want to take it to the next stage. And then by aligning ourselves with organizations like FIRST, that's the perfect opportunity for us to bring our technology into play there and help support them along that process. So for us, it's about inspiration.
And one thing that I, just speaking from a personal perspective, have tried to do with humility, even though it's tough from time to time, is to admit, like, look, if you don't have experience in this, that in no way, shape, or form implies that you can't do this down the line. And it seems like that's the message you're trying to get out there.
Absolutely, and things like problem solving, they're going to be critical. One of the really inspiring things of going and having a walk around the pits here is that you have almost 190 countries, different languages, different colors, different national economic growth sectors, different richness. But everybody is here speaking a common language, and that common language is robotics. But importantly, it's also fundamentally about education, because that's imperative. If we are going to solve these global issues that we're talking about, such as access to clean water, such as energy, such as how are we going to cure cancer, it's about education. But it's got to be about global education, because not one country on their own are actually going to solve this. Collectively, we need to work together. And what the teams are showing here is they are exactly the generation that are in the position to do that. So those boundaries and barriers that maybe we may have seen in the past, they absolutely aren't there. And technology is helping to overcome that, and working collaboratively is something which is an essential part of what they're doing through the FIRST Global program. So that's why these kind of initiatives are really important to us at Autodesk, because we are helping to inspire the next generation, because it is that generation that's going to make a huge difference and impact on everybody.
And you certainly had an impact in the classroom. You said that previously you used to be a teacher as well.
Yes.
How did that transition happen into working with Autodesk, and what was that like for you?
So I started initially as a mechanical engineer, a design engineer, and I started using Autodesk products through my apprenticeship program in the UK. And then I started teaching part-time at a local college, and I really got excited about it. And I loved going in the classroom, so I took the leap and I went into full-time education. I taught for 7 years full-time, and one of the things I loved about teaching were you were able to make an impact on that class. But that class could only be 30 or 40 students. What I find really empowering and exciting about working with Autodesk is we have an opportunity to have an impact on millions and millions of young people all around the world. So from a personal point of view, my classroom has grown exponentially now. And that's why, again, coming in and working with organizations like FIRST, being able to just try to inspire millions of young people, that's powerful.
And I can talk from personal experience. As I said, I've been a student, and I participated at the first robotics competition. I knew nothing about technology, nothing about robotics, absolutely nothing. And in just a week, I learned how to do 3D design on computers.
Wow.
And it's programs like this that inspire us, but it's also the fact that we had the technology to learn.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And for me personally, again, going back to even the students that I've taught with Tinkercad, just one facet of Autodesk and the wonderful work that you're doing, we had what was called the Green City Design Challenge. Students would design their own structures and build their own sustainable cities based off of what looked like basically a sim city of choices. And so at the end, you have this concrete finished product, and it was entirely reflected by the kids in the group who made the decisions. They're the ones that we empowered. They're the ones that we gave the autonomy to make those decisions with. But you even as a student, you had talked about just kind of getting a taste. And then living as that example at Autodesk, you get to go into these classrooms or get to spread your product basically around the world as that living example, and saying, like, look, all it takes is that one little moment, that one spark. And it sounds like you're doing a great job with that.
Yeah, and it is inspiring. And what I find really interesting as well is it's got to go above and beyond just living in a virtual world as well. We've got to help people to make anything. And what we find with young people, and by working with things like Tinkercad, they've got options to go into different areas. So you can export your design from Tinkercad into Minecraft, and all of a sudden you're having a connection into the gaming world. You can 3D print it. You can use VR or AR with things now, or you can physically then use your 3D model to create something like a robot you see here today. So it's incredibly inspiring. What I also find always very interesting is the different approach that young people will take to a problem and a potential solution. And just being able to visit schools and go and visit some teams